Welcome. In this video I'm going to run through how to block in our level, and we might see if we can get to the materials as well. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is create some rooms here. Now to create anything you have to use the brush, okay, and we're going to change the size of this brush here and then place it in our map, and then basically once that's done we're going to create another room to go with that one, and then put a door between them, and then we'll get to the materials here. Now, first things first, if you do select something, I'm also going to just make sure my room or my view is in all four. You can see that what I selected there is that blue one. If I hit delete, it does disappear here. Now the shadow still remains. I'm just going to build the lighting here, turn the light mask off, and that will remove that from here once that's done. Alright, so what we want to do is first create a smaller room, and in Edmodo I put the sizes there for us. And so the first room is going to be 1024, 1024, 512, okay, and then the walls are 16, which is the default, and we're going to set that to hollow. Okay, so to do that we simply go back to UDK, change the brush size. So I'm going to right click on it, and we're going to manually set this. And so like I said, this is 1024, 1024, 512, and we set it to hollow. And that way it creates the outside and inside wall to give the walls some thickness there. Now, you can just go cancel or close it away, that's okay. We have to place our room in the right spot. And so first thing I'm going to worry about is the height. So either on the side perspective or the front perspective, I'm just going to click on it, make sure I'm on the move tool, and also make sure you're in the camera mode, and just drag it up. Okay, and that places it on the ground here. So if I zoom in, I can see that it's on the ground. Okay, so the bottom one is on the ground there. Then I'm going to go to this top view here, zoom out a little bit, and I want to make sure my room is placed somewhere near one of the edges. It doesn't really matter which one, but since we have to put another room in here, we want to make sure that we've got enough room for it, okay, down in this area. So that's great. We've got our first room. Now, or the brush for our first room, we actually have to create it, and we do that by doing the CSG add. And that puts in that box. Okay. Next thing, we'll just modify the brush. So right click, and we're going to double the sizes here. So again, these are in Edmodo. Oops. So 2048, 2048, and the height is going to be 1024, and we're going to leave it as hollow. Okay, and you can see the brush has changed its size. I'm going to change its position on the top view first. And if I zoom in, I want to make sure that those line up. Now what I'm using is the arrow keys here, and I can see that the two red ones that represent this wall and the blue ones that represent that wall now match exactly. Okay, so they're basically sharing the wall. Now I also have to be careful that it's in this right height, and I can see here it's too far down. So I'm going to click on it, drag it up, and hopefully it matches there, and it matches up. Okay, and so that should be pretty good. You can see from the perspective window it's a little hard to tell exactly where it is. That's why we need these orthographic views to see it properly. So what I'm going to do there is just CSG add as well. Okay, so we're basically done with the physical structure there of our two rooms. But of course, if we come inside, we can see that we do not have a door. Okay, so it's presently impossible to go from one room to another. So we're going to create that door there. So what I'm going to do is take this brush again, okay, it's a square brush, and I'm going to make it a lot smaller. Now, I know from experience that, or from remembering our other room, it was 512, or sorry, it was 1024 by 1024. I'm going to lower this down to 512. Now the height, if I did 512 as well, that's going to be the same height as the original room. You can see it just lining up there. That's a little bit high, so I'm going to go down to 384. And I'm using a multiple of 16 there so that it matches up nicely. And then I'm just going to bring this down, and then just double check. So that's in a good spot there. It's right on the floor, and it's centered nicely. in this room, so that's the small room and then the big room. The only problem is its location here. And so I just have to make sure I grab it and drag it. Okay, now it doesn't really matter where I position it here, as long as it's between or across these two. Okay, so it's going to remove this wall, these two lines here. Now there's one thing I forgot to do which would cause a problem. At the moment it's hollow. Okay, this is a hollow room, so if I subtract, which is what I want to do, it would actually leave part of the wall. It would only remove this little bit and this little bit here. So I'm going to go back to my brushes and make sure I set that to not hollow. Okay, that way it will remove everything here. So now when I hit, so I'm going to just cancel there. When I hit the CSG subtract, it removes it, and of course I was sort of not looking at it there. There it is. Now, I went a little low. Okay, so now that I did that with removing the outer wall, I actually dug into the floor there. So I'm going to actually Control Z that, put it back, go back to here. Okay, and because I've removed that hollowness, I'm going to bring this on up. Okay, so now that that's removed, okay, this should be better. So we'll watch it here, CSG subtract, and there we go. Okay, so we've kept our floor, and then we have our wall here. Now if you want to do the same thing and put an outer door, that's fine, or you can change it up. That will be sort of an option for you to do, is work on the outside. Now there's one last thing I want to do before we get into any materials, and that's deal with sort of a shelf or a mezzanine. Okay, what I want to do is create in our bigger room a secondary level. And again, you can modify this more later, but I'm just going to show you how to put in a little shelf here. So what I'm going to do is grab my brush, and I know my original room was 2048 in terms of one of the lengths. Okay, so I'm going to make it 2048. The other one, I know it was half of that was 1024. I could probably reduce that a little bit. We'll see what it looks like. The thickness, this is going to be the thickness of our shelf. Doesn't need to be nearly that thick. Probably like 32 or something might be okay. And so I'll just sort of give you an idea of what's going on here. If we look from our top view, okay, let me just get my right. Okay, that's the empty. Where's my brush gone? Okay, there is my brush here on the red. If I move this over and over to here, you can see that that is my sort of what my shelf is going to be. And so I'm going to lift it up a little bit here, maybe to about that level. Okay, so basically we're creating a secondary spot here. Now I'm feeling that that's coming out too far, so what I will do is just sort of drag this over a little bit so that it looks a little bit better. Okay, so what I'll do here is just reduce this number. So 1024, it should be a multiple of 16. So 7, I'm just trying to think here, good number. Well, 1600, so 800 should work. Okay, tab, and then I'm just going to drag that over and just sort of line it up against that wall, and then just make sure it lines up there, which it does. And this one might go through a little bit. Yeah, so I'm just going to bring it up one. Okay, so that should match up all the way through. It does. And then I'm just going to build that. So CSG add. And now I've got this shelf here. Okay, so if I fly up here, you can see this shelf. All right, so that creates our basic layout for the level. Like I said, you're free to do a lot more if you want. We are going to bring in static meshes and stuff to make things look better. So don't worry too much what it looks like at the moment. You can always add more. I think I'll end this video here and keep the materials to a separate video. Alright, so hopefully you can create your level to get it to look like this without too much issue. And we'll see you in the next video when we deal with the materials.